1, 2, take it forward, 3, now take it up, 4, now take it down, 5. So think of this idea as making sure, but one of the things I guess about this type of training is this idea of what movement is and what movement isn't. When to know which parts of my body are doing something and which parts of my body aren't doing something, because that's knowledge, and that's what charisma comes from. So that's really good, Matt, because you kept the demand going, and that's actually what made you more interesting. Not that you just changed to make it easy for yourself, but the fact that you tried to do your story with this incredible demand, with this elbows around the thing, and that's what made you interesting and finish.
Welcome back to Showreel. That was a clip from our trip to an OzFrank theatre rehearsal with Matt Clayton and Adam Fawns. We have Jacqui, Carroll and John Nobbs from OzFrank Theatre here with us. So maybe we can talk a bit more about what we did in the rehearsal itself, just like the different exercises and stuff like that. Yeah.
I guess you could say we did probably we were at 40 or 50 exercises, probably a huge number, which we don't do all the time, because that would probably take about 12 hours to run through. And we concentrate on certain things at certain times as how we feel about what we're doing.
Yep.
But the main thing is to think that the exercise, especially say what we call basic 2, which is the first one we did, where you did pick the leg up and then stomp the floor and take it forward. Once again, very simple language. It's turned in, it's not turned out like you would be in ballet. And you stress that each one of these things are experiences, really. So what it must look like some sort of position in a form of choreography, each one of those stops or those things are a point where you feel something very strongly. And the idea is to, I guess, you pick up and then you stomp the floor, which is embracing the ground at high energy. So it might look like you're hitting the ground, but in fact it's quite a soft thing. Even though it's very powerful, it's quite soft. And all these things are about experiencing things at a very powerful level.
I guess for actors that are used to concentrating more on talking and what they're saying on stage, to look at the exercises that you're doing, it's, well, how is that going to help me? What am I really
it might be easy to think this is like movement theatre, or doing movements, and a lot of it's called physical theatre, which we think is an absurd term. It's just theatre, like anything. What's not physical, etc. It's a silly word. But the point thing, I suppose, is to say that your body doesn't lie. You know, body language doesn't lie. And they've analysed that if you take some sort of conversation we're having, the percentage, if you to break down the percentage into the physical language, the sound, and the actual meaning, you find that 60% of all communications with the body, 30% is actually the sound, and only 10% is the actual content. So in all the things we're talking about, most of it's actually physical. And so that's something we think you should be concentrating on, rather than just the intellectual, the meaning of the word. And of course it's borne out really in statistics.
That's what they say about like script writing or something like that. It's show, don't tell. Like there's one line of dialogue can say so much by what you don't say in that line. That's
right, and that's, well, the reason for that is that the unconscious mind that will take in stuff that's not sort of literary, not literal, and the most moving stuff in either theatre or film is actually the unspoken physical experience. You need the words obviously to frame that, to make people understand where it's coming from, but the power is really in the body. And so we say the same thing. Plus, the body is also the template. For us, we believe the body is where the voice starts to come from. So if you look at somebody who's bodied, you know, the voice is in their body, it looks like their whole voice is coming from the whole body, not just their mouth or not just their larynx. And that has to be trained up, like anything probably.
I know before we did the workshop, and we watched some other people doing the exercise we did with the teddy bears, and watching it, and it's kind of, you're watching it and think, this is a bit silly, it's teddy bears, and they're doing some funny voices, but then there's a point that it sort of crosses over to something else, and actually you can't really see it. I think it's not really conveyed with the video that we have. It's hard without actually being there, but it crosses over to something else and actually becomes kind of compelling. Which was interesting for me to watch, and then to do it as well.
It's interesting because in that particular exercise we asked the actors to have a kind of madness at the beginning, It's like Kasai, we call it after the name of a Japanese dancer who went berserk one night, and she said, that's interesting. Anyway, because the actor should experience a sort of primitive part of themselves. There should be an uncontrolled part which they can make manifest. And then they go right back and they start to pull it back. So it's full of all those little odd things happening all the time, and like you say, at the end of it, you suddenly think, oh, hang on.
Great actors, like great rock and roll performers, are shamans, essentially. They're shamans. So they, in order for them to be compelling, they have to go through a very powerful personal experience. And when the audience, and this is Lady Gaga, Elton John, it doesn't matter who you talk about, they've all got this amazing sense of shaman, what we call a shaman, like a witch doctor in a primitive society. And for them, they have to go through these experiences. If they don't go through them, there's nothing for us to actually participate in, to vicariously have our own experience from it. So, and of course, so you want to have this sort of primitive energy, if you like, this sort of wild quality, but of course it can't be too wild because then it's not controlled at all. And I mean, a lot of people go so wild they never come back, really. You know, they lose themselves and they go crazy, and there's lots of stories of that, a lot of collateral damage. So you're saying, how do you create a situation where people can do this in a controlled environment so they don't have to actually lose their minds in the process? And something like the teddy bears is a way of accessing a type of thing. You know, when you look at a teddy bear, when anybody looks at a teddy bear, regardless of what sex they are, you get this incredible empathy that comes from this return to childhood mythology or something. There's a form of what we call personal mythology, and as soon as people do that, and what you're talking about, you say it looks ridiculous, but then suddenly these people just get this amazing look in their face, and you can actually see them communing, as it were, with some sort of psychological experience they may have had, 5, 10, 25 years ago. And it happened to you because I saw it in your face. I mean, you can actually see it. And
yeah, after a while you stopped noticing, because we were being filmed, you stopped noticing there was a camera there, stopped noticing there was an audience there, and you just sort of...
Yeah, and it's very easy to do that. Suddenly do it because it's a soft toy. It's not a baby. It's not a real animals. And you probably, as a child, would have had something similar, didn't you?
Yeah.
And you may still have it. I mean, and so you're accessing something that's very important to you. That's part of your past. And so we find it's very, very evocative and very, very interesting. It takes you to a very creative place. And I'd have to say that we've done this in Nepal, we've done it in Mongolia, we've done it with people who are very, very different cultures to ours, and has exactly the same result.
Well, I actually found that after all of the chaos and everything, to then suddenly we've got to put our attention on the bear, there was a certain sense of relief suddenly, not to have to do all of that, and then I guess some sort of sense of the teddy bear and what that means, and emoting with that. Well, we have to take another break. We'll be back soon with some info on the British Film Festival and a review of The Butler. Don't go away.